So, to start this, when I was thinking about inspired, and you look what inspired actually means, it's breathe life into. So I was hoping that by the end of my talk, maybe there's something that I could inspire you with and breathe into you and hopefully bring into your life. So to start this, let me ask you a question. Could you raise your hand if you have someone in your life that has truly inspired you? You ever had that? Amazing. And I want you to imagine that that person that inspired you is standing on the stage right now. Okay, can you imagine what it's like when you see that person in their brilliance and you just get to spend time with that person? And I felt so lucky because I got the opportunity to meet the person that has inspired me more than anyone else. And I got to go to dinner with him for 2 hours. And it was the most amazing experience I've ever had. Can you imagine if you spent 2 hours with your hero or the person that just inspires you more than anyone else? Can you just imagine how that feels? After I had that conversation with him, the next day, something very strange happened. What I didn't know is that my hero and the person that inspired me the most was actually lost. Despite smiling on the surface, there was something else going on inside. The very next day, the person that inspired me most in the world committed suicide. And I had no idea. And if you had been with me a week later, you'd have found me sitting on a bench. And it was a beautiful blue sky outside. The sun was shining, and I could hear the birds chirping. But this was in complete contrast to what was going on inside of me and inside of my mind. And I remember sitting in a dark room. Have you ever had a moment in your life where your hands didn't stop shaking? Why do I have to do this? Why me? Why couldn't he do it? He's probably done this thousands of times. We now welcome Ben Ivey to the stand. And I remember looking out into a sea of faces, all of Mark's family and friends, hoping that there was something that I could say that could make them feel better about this situation. We are all so fortunate to have known Mark. Can you imagine if the person that inspired you most in the world disappeared? Just like that. But the truth is, Mark was more than just a person that inspired me. I'd known Mark ever since I was a really young child. Mark was like family to me. Mark was family to me. Mark was my dad. And to think, a week earlier, I'd seen him walk out of a toilet with toilet paper wrapped around his head, pretending to be the invisible man. A man with a laugh so loud that it would echo in a room. But this shook my world and took me on a journey of self-discovery where I started to dive into what is it that really matters in life. I quit my business in Silicon Valley and I started to search, why do we do what we do? And I started to go on all these courses, hundreds of courses all over the world, from China to San Francisco, LA, UK, searching and understanding why is it that people do what they do? What is it that drives us? And why is it that we live in these parallel worlds? One that people see, and another what's really going on. And I got really good and I decided, you know what I want to be? I want to be happy all the time. Could you raise your hand if you would like to be happy all the time? Honestly, not a good idea. And let me explain why. Because I did it and I was happy all the time and I got the techniques and it was amazing. However, if this is happiness and this is neutral, I would only experience this. And for myself, I'd never experience anything underneath that because I wouldn't allow myself to feel those negative emotions. And because I could be happy so quickly, it meant that I would also not experience those other emotions as well. And I remember actually overcoming that and starting to say, I can actually help people with this. And I was helping people before. But have you ever tried to help someone, but then you couldn't connect with them on like a deeper level? Has that ever happened to you? For myself, I realized that once I got over that, there was an opportunity there to really impact people. And now I spend my time traveling the world, training other fulfillment artists and ultimately helping as many people as I can be fulfilled in the quickest and most sustainable way possible. And one of the things that I want to share with you today is some of the core concepts that I think are fundamental for fulfillment. One of the things that I want to share with you is something called the Grant Study. Have you ever heard of the Grant Study, by show of hands? The Grant Study is the longest study ever done on happiness, and they started in 1938. And they followed 238 Harvard graduates and 444 people from Boston for 75 years. And they measured everything about their lives. The amount of social interactions they had, the amount of money they had, their income, their career. And George Vaillant, the guy that finished the last 2 decades of the experiment, said it could be summed up in 5 words. 75 years and $20 million in 5 words. Would you like to hear those 5 words? All right, one person. Would you guys like to hear the 5 words? Yes or no? He says, happiness is love, full stop. And in our life, how often do we think, I can do everything myself. I don't need love. I don't need people around us. But the truth is that love is of fundamental importance. And as men and women, it's often very difficult to try and understand the other person. And how often have you had arguments with a partner or try to understand someone and you really have no idea where they're coming from? For example, men, I think the biggest complaint is she's always trying to change me. And for women, it's, he just doesn't understand me. And my fiance and I, when we were having this chat, and I was getting annoyed. And I was thinking, all right, honey, do you want me to fix the problem or would you like me to listen? And she goes, I want you to fix it by listening. Like what? I was like, what? And often it's those small nuances of actually understanding men and women that allows us to really understand how to really love someone fully. Because often we try and love someone how we want to be loved instead of the way they actually want to be loved. And the reason why a lot of relationships break down is because we give them everything they need except for what they actually need. It's what we think they need. So love is of fundamental importance. But you could have love and love would be amazing, but if you don't manage your mind and your emotions, you're going to be in a very, very difficult state. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a thought, just by raising of hands, that you're not good enough? Has that ever happened to you before? Okay, pretty much everyone in the room. If everyone's had the thought, is it your thought? Something to think about. Or maybe it's just the human condition. And something that I find fascinating is that the human mind is built for survival. So what this means is that it's always looking for things that are wrong. So in our lives, we have these conversations. Have you ever had conversations with yourself and had the same conversations? Has that ever happened to you? Of course, everyone's like, yeah. And the people are like, hey, yes, all the time. I'm having one right now. So what does this mean? How do we overcome this human condition for survival? Well, the truth is we need to reprogram ourselves. So instead of surviving, we start to thrive in life. And one of the core elements that was mentioned previously is gratitude. And if you start doing daily gratitude and you look at what you're grateful for, what happens is we start to build ourselves up into abundance as opposed to living in scarcity. It's one of the core habits that I think if you're not thinking of 3 things that you're grateful for every day, you're going to get used to what's around you, and then it's going to be very difficult for you to really be fulfilled in life. So you could have emotions and things like that. You could have love. But if you don't have the next one, you're going to really struggle. And that is having meaning and purpose. By a show of hands, has anyone here ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning? Yeah? An amazing book. If you haven't read it, read it. It's by Viktor Frankl. He was in the Holocaust and he was a psychiatrist. He started to look into what is it that really matters to man when everything's taken from him. So for us, if you don't have a meaning or a purpose, just imagine that you're a ship at sea. And this is how most people do life. They just wander around, they set a goal, and then they go like this. And they really just have no idea what's happening, and we often wander around. Right? Raise your hand if you've ever set a goal and gone in the other direction. Very true. Right? And why do we do that? Because often it's there, but we don't really have that purpose and that meaning, and there's so many people that feel that they lack that. However, once you have that and you can understand where you're looking forward to, it allows you to think in a different way. Are you ever excited when Friday comes? Has that ever happened to you? Because if we're always excited for Friday, because it's the weekend, what are we doing with the other 5 days? Do we really want to trade those 5 days for just 2 days? It's something to think about. So ultimately, where do we move from here? Because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, as Einstein says, but expecting different results. So the question that I pose to you today is, maybe there is an opportunity in your life to take a different perspective, to do something different. Because life isn't a dress rehearsal. Yet many people live it like that and think they're going to get another opportunity. The truth is, this is the only life we get. So I would challenge you to make it extraordinary. Because I'm sure you don't think you're average, so don't settle for an average life. Choose to have an extraordinary one. Thank you very much.